In this presentation, I would like to reflect on my teaching experience of an undergrad course titled Society and Animals that I designed and have been delivering since 2022 at the Sociology Department of Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University in Turkey, Istanbul. It's actually one of the very few examples in Turkey in this subject. Actually, one of the two. One of the other one is also delivered by a colleague from the same voluntary organization for Lex City, Mine Yıldırım. There is another course, but it's all more in the frame of social responsibility, not from a critical animal studies perspective. So this is the second one, literally. This course aims at transgress and call in question the anthropocentric borders and boundaries of sociology and humanities in general, as well as exploring human-animal relations as the constitutive element of the social in a multifaceted way. The aim of the course is to provide students with knowledge about the current debates and studies in critical animal studies and human-animal studies to enable them to critically evaluate human-animal relations as a constitutive part of the social context and to contribute to the development of a non-anthropocentric and modern human sociological imagination. Actually, even though I started conveying this course 3 years ago, my motivation and enthusiasm for it was lasting a way longer. I'm a film scholar working on cinematic animals for a quite long time. And in our department, with a colleague, we convey a PhD level course on modern humans and critical post-human theory. But I always deemed crucial of circulation of these debates in an undergrad level sociology education, and in order to create an academia that's not indifferent towards modern humans and modern human life and world making. There was also another issue that was very significant for me, having a high motivation for opening this course. That was actually the hatred politics of the governing party, AKP, towards animal life, especially towards dogs living in the streets, on the streets in Turkey. Maybe you know, aware of it. In Turkey, dogs and cats, without a human owner, can live on the streets freely. Stray animals are the characteristics of social and cultural life for hundreds of years. Along with anti-feminist, authoritarian, transphobic and homophobic discourses and policies of the governing party, an increasing subordination of animal life as a way of social control started. So like anti-feminist or transphobic hate speech towards people, governing parties start using street dogs as portraying as dangerous, portraying as threats to the sane, sanit, and safe everyday life in Turkey, with the media coverages like street dog terror kind of thing. And especially these coverages are along with street dogs attacking children and elderly people. So against this increasing discourse of hatred with its violent physical consequences on animal lives, I imagined and felt this course as a survival kit for me and for the students with same concerns. And it literally becomes one, along with the approval of the new animal protection law in Turkey last July 2024. We call it kind of massacre law, which is basically for erasing all the street animals from the streets, removing millions of dogs from the streets and confine them in shelters. So here I use survival kit in a literal sense, quite literal sense, and following in Sara Ahmed's seminal piece, Living a Feminist Life. In that book, Ahmed defines survival kit as a feminist toolbox, also introduces both feminism and feminists as a survival kit. And it's important to note here that feminism for Ahmed is not an abstract category, abstract identity that we can put on like a cape, let's say, rather than it's something that we constantly do in everyday life, in every facets of life. Quote, I write this book as a way of holding on to the promise of that word, to think what it means to live your life by claiming that word as your own. Being a feminist, becoming a feminist, speaking as a feminist. Living a feminist life does not mean adopting a set of ideas or norms of conduct, although it might mean asking ethical questions about how to live better in an unjust and unequal world, in a not feminist and anti-feminist world, how to create relationships with others that are more equal, how to find ways to support those who are not supported or are less supported by social systems, how to keep coming up against histories that have become concrete, histories that have become solid as walls. Feminism is about how to live, about a way of thinking how to live. We need to ask what it is we are against, what it is we are for, knowing full well that this we is not a foundation, but what we are working toward. With such a perspective and perception of feminism, Ahmed's book enables us to reflect on our academic work, our methodology, our class experience, our course design in a new and visionary way, as that does not separate a feminist life from our everyday work-based decisions about writing or teaching, how to teach, what to teach, which material to include in our syllabuses, for example. Again, another quotation, when we think of feminist theory as homework, the university too becomes something we work on as well as at. So Ahmed introduces the gesture of rolling eyes as part of feminist pedagogy, as I believe we vegans and activists so much confronted in everyday life. So rolling eyes as a generic response in the face of a feminist comment or criticism was linked to the figure of feminist killjoy by Ahmed. What feminist killjoy kills is the harmonic unity of us, the unity of family tables. Feminist killjoys challenge insistently and persistently the general will, the familial will, the will of us. This willfulness is the part of building a world of our own, and it requires, in Ahmed's terms, a feminist ear. A feminist ear picks up on what is being said, a message that is blocked by how what it is being said is heard as interference. The sounds of no, the complaints about violence, the refusals to laugh at sexist jokes, the refusals to comply with unreasonable demands. To acquire a feminist ear is to hear those sounds as speech. With an inspiration of the concept of feminist ear, Animals and Society course was imagined as a refusal to the hatred and violence towards animals on the streets especially, and no to the union of the national family table that is set over animal lives and picks up on the sounds of animals and of companion species becoming wits. Along with that, Ahmed's piece also inspired me and guided me about caring and questioning about the decisions for designing and conducting such a course. Through Ahmed's work, I understand that those decisions about the course material and design, as well as the course itself, become survival tools. Ahmed suggests citation policy. On citation policy, feminism is at stake in how we generate knowledge, in how we write, in who we cite. I think of feminism as a building project. If our texts are worlds, they need to be made out of feminist materials. Feminist theory is world making. Citation is feminist memory. Citation is how we acknowledge our debt to those who came before, those who helped us find our way when the way was obscured because we deviated from the paths we were told to follow. Citations can be feminist bricks. They are the materials from which we create our dwellings. My citation policy has affected the kind of house I have built, end of quotation. Inspired by Ahmed's foregrounding of citation policy as a feminist world-making, I tried to create a non-anthropocentric dwelling, i.e. classroom, by my citation policy. So let's look at the classroom bricks. The first brick is the syllabus, so the creational decisions. I try to include text and notice as companion texts. So I just asked the question, I'm inspired by whom, and I want the students to inspire by whom. So beyond big Western male names, male and heterosexual names, let's say, who has the citational privilege, translations and the ones who work for creating a literature in Turkish critical animal studies, I try to brought them together in the syllabus. So basically, some Turkish names, for example, the Bora Özgüner is one of the well-known past activists who initiated almost, like vegan and animal liberation activism in Turkey. So his piece comes together with Peter Singer, let's say. And beyond, and this also shows how, like I try to use this. We don't have in this area, but usually, in the academia, we have this academia versus activism divide. So coming together, Burak's piece, which is online journal piece, let's say, on online newspaper piece, comes with Peter Singer. So basically, academia and activism beyond this divide, I try to include interviews, try to include newspaper articles, blogs, also podcasts and radio programs. I also try to invite, as much as I can possible, especially in the first year, guest lecturers and who are in the field in Turkey to become a kind of inspiration for the ones following the course. So newly graduates who just finished, the ones especially in our department, who finished our department and go to, for example, UK for animal studies PhD, for animal studies MA. So to see a kind of, like academic and live feature in those examples, I try to invite them in the syllabus and to make a kind of guest lecture. And also I try to include newly academics, young academics, to share their words on critical animal studies with the students, to motivate both the students and the lecturers and try to say their words out loud in the academia. So try to basically make the feeling and sense with this syllabus that there are others like you in the academia. There are others like you working in the academia and doing certain things and become very successful. Because there's also another kind of rolling eyes. We're still in Turkey, but maybe in the Western academia too. Oh, you're in critical animal studies. This is not sociology. This is not that much film studies, like cinema is not that, art is not that. So this is basically the live experience and live examples of people, inviting them, making a kind of community also to meet face to face, and so that they can work together later, they can make connection with them. Basically, considering the existing inequality of the academia, insufficient changes of publishing, being cited, having exposure of members of certain groups, it is almost the ethical responsibility of acknowledging, caring, and also try to repair that kind of failure by our curational decisions. So the syllabus is also done in that way by intention. Also, I must say, again, following in Ahmed's footsteps, leaving no one behind, especially anyone writes for this cause in Turkish, has a place in this syllabus for about like the 3 years. So, and also maybe in a parenthesis, I must say that it's also welcome guest students from other universities openly can attend the class. So the second brick is an on-site snap, a snap on-site. The first year of the course was coincided with the Istanbul Biennial in 2022. And there was an installation there called Wallowland by Cooking Sections. Maybe you are aware of the collector, devoted to the protection of wetlands of Istanbul and water buffaloes in Istanbul. And it's a highly celebrated piece because of their ecological concerns, let's say. But on the other hand, as you may know and see in other examples, there's a highly shallow ecological concern. The work case, the water buffaloes only for the sake of the dairy production, basically. So maybe I should show, you know, like how they set a milk pudding shop, which is also kind of traditional cafe versions, nostalgic and traditional cafe versions in Turkey. So they made a milk pudding shop at a gallery space, selling milk puddings made from the milk of the water buffaloes of wetlands of Istanbul by traditional farmers. Maybe you may see, you know, like the bowls there. The soils are also made up of the soil of the wetlands by an artist. There are words of traditional Turkish, Kurdish, and Armenian songs on the mirrors written, which basically mentions water buffaloes, let's say. There's also a kind of sound installation where we can hear at first the buffalo sounds, but in a short while, it's just basically raised by the human sounds, also, you know, like the plane sounds, also the highway sounds. So what we did basically as a kind of midterm exam and also homework, we just came to the site in that gallery, and we made our class here to make the critical reading of the art piece here on site, and then with a safe grading, they write their midterm homework exam at home after our discussions there, and then they turn it in. So basically what we did is criticize and debate around the raised lives of water buffaloes for the sake of wetland productions, raise the voice of no on site. So as Killjoys, inspired by a feminist snap, this was a snap on sides, I think. So the third brick I want to bring is a course blog. We just opened a course blog, and it was completely voluntary publishing, but also there's different groups of titles, or all our issues in Turkey, all our animal figures in Turkey, so that each student choose at least two entries, two titles, and make entries. They, as I said, can publish or just turn it in the homework. They all published in the end for their midterm paper also. And they can also publish on any subject whenever they want. And each year, all students' publishings are come one another, and they have the same password, and they, whenever they want after graduating, also they can still publish and write on that blog. With this blog, we just wanted to aim at circulating our no, basically, raising the voice of less heard or unheard to human exceptionalism, creating a safe space for our own beyond the classroom. So space of telling stories of no, counter stories, and circulating them. And also linking everyday life to the academic field with this blog, beyond the binary divide of academia versus activism, academia or academic thinking versus everyday life. And also, with each year, it is creating an archive of no, again, following in Ahmed's footsteps, archive of companion species, as each student, after taking the course, keep on writing and writing next to each other. And so each year, the platform is getting bigger. So Ahmed sees survival as a must and something that is built by others and for others. So this is the blog, how it looks. Survival can thus be what we do for others, with others. We need each other to survive. We need to be part of each other's survival. To be committed to a feminist life means we cannot do this work alone. We cannot fight for this cause, whatever it causes. So we have to find a way of sharing the costs of that work. survival thus becomes a shared feminist project. This kind of survival and this survival kit, this survival of shared survival idea basically opened to me the idea of Communitas, a community wherein texts, authors, guest lecturers, animals in the text, animals in our lives interlace as a survival project. The definition of Communitas inspired me comes from feminist scholar, Turkish feminist scholar Bora. She's also inspired by Edith Turner, the Communitas of collective joy. And she defines Communitas as a state of being together rather than a community around a mutual cause. Not a label, but a verb that motivates and opens up. Not positions that are tightly protected, but places that are shifting like in a dance. A companionship that includes me by doing together, not through my identity. The Communitas of a classroom willfully insist on the non-anthropocentric worlds we want to live, affirming that more than human lives are in companion and matter. And living is always living together, being with. So I just leave you the item 5, life, and especially the part how Sara Ahmed shares her experience with the puppy, and also horse. So I'm living with this text, and thank you for listening.